Mr. Chairman. Thank you, Mr. Marzano. You spent 2 years working with Chair Carper as a fellow and then a detailee at EPW. So based on this experience, could you point to 2 or 3 examples where you would have voted differently than how the majority of the commission voted?
In terms of examples of how I'd voted differently, I think it's a little bit inappropriate for me to comment exactly without understanding some of the details on some of the votes that the commission has made. I think that the commission has done, some great work up to this point in listening to this committee, especially responding to the new licensing framework that's being developed for advanced reactors, the technology-neutral, risk-informed, performance-based Part 53 process. And this committee did a lot of work to drive the NRC and the Commission to address some of the concerns that industry had, as well as many others, about making that rule work for both, for all stakeholders. And so, again, without kind of having more information on some of those votes, I would have to ask or answer that.
Let me give you some examples. The commission reversed previously issued license renewals, which created massive uncertainty for the licensees. Do you have an opinion on that?
Again, without further details on that issue, I think it would be.
Well, I'm assuming you know the details of the issue.
Yes, I do have some of those details, and the reasoning behind that, from my perspective, from what I understood, the decision that was made was to address, concerns about litigation and the environmental review process for these plants, and so, I think what the commission did in that case was appropriate to make those, to do the work to get that regulation out, to provide more certainty going in the future.
Okay,
I think one of the things that, I'll note is those decisions were made far ahead of the licensing process, or of the license expiration dates for those plants. And getting that right means that moving forward, there will be more certainty as more plants enter into the subsequent license review process.
Okay, so you agree with that decision. So what about the decision to help the NRC's staff proposal and to update? You sort of mentioned this in your response, the agency's environmental review requirements.
Not too familiar, again, with some of the details. Are you talking in reference to the subsequent license review, or?
Yeah.
I wouldn't have voted, actually I can't say, how I would have voted on that. Again, I think there's a lot of things that I don't know about the information that the staff provides the commissioners, and it would be inappropriate for me to comment.
Okay, one of the things that really drives me crazy is the NRC comes in and wants more money all the time, and yet they don't spend the money from the year before. So the commission oversees this. Do you agree with that strategy?
I think that it's very important for the NRC to be more responsible stewards of its budget. And efficiency in that budget, as you've mentioned, is very important. And some of the action that we took in the ADVANCE Act regarding the NRC's budget is aimed at driving that efficiency. And I think now, after the ADVANCE Act has been in place, I think it's incumbent upon the agency to live up to those authorities, and as a commissioner, if confirmed, I would faithfully execute that provision and the rest of the ADVANCE Act.
Okay, good. I'm glad you went to that, because my staff has dutifully counted all the words of efficient and efficiency are used 24 times in the text of the ADVANCE Act, and you probably well know that. You alluded to it there. Given your work on this, will you provide a couple examples of specific activities where you think they could be more efficient as directed by the bill?
Yeah, absolutely, Senator. I think driving efficiency in terms of processes, again, going back to being more forward-looking, I think in the areas of research, in the areas of engagement with the Department of Energy's efforts, going back to the Memorandum of Understanding that were put in place by the Nuclear Energy Innovation Capabilities Act. Leveraging those partnerships, getting ahead of the technology, understand where it's going, will create tremendous efficiencies to prepare for this technology.
Do you agree with the opening part of my statement where I said that if we don't get this right more efficiently and in a more timely manner, we're going to lose our global superiority in this area?
I do agree.
Thank you. Oh, yes. Thank you. Mr. Marzano, you worked in the nuclear industry for about 6 years at the VC Summer nuclear plant that was under construction in South Carolina, and then that combined that with the Braidwood, am I saying that right? Yeah, Braidwood Nuclear Power Plant, Illinois, as a senior reactor operator. That's correct. So you've got firsthand knowledge. We've heard a lot about what you've said, and really appreciate that. So can you provide us a couple of specific examples of NRC regulations that should be updated to provide that more efficient regulatory? I mean, you talked about engagement, pre-engagement, and things like that, but I'm talking more specific types of examples.
Yeah, I think, from my experience, the efforts underway at the NRC to drive risk insights across all of the regulatory framework and responsibilities that the NRC has already paid some dividends. And so it would be leveraging those risk insights and continuing to operate as a risk-informed regulator and looking for more opportunities there. In the role, I saw specific changes that helped with my role as a senior reactor operator to keep the plant up and running, related to essentially using risk information real time to evaluate the status of the plant, especially in response to maintenance activities that were going on or components that fail. And it's looking for more opportunities to drive those risk insights.
Okay, let me ask you give me a concrete example of what a risk insight would be.
Yeah,
nuclear plant.
So there are these things called technical specifications for every plant, and that is essentially the law of the plant. You have to meet those requirements. You have timing that's required to do certain actions, and what these risk insights allow you to do is change those times. So you can extend them. It's called risk-informed completion time. And what that has done is taken the direct results from a probabilistic risk assessment calculation, using that to assess the plant's risk based on its current status, and then be able to give a little bit more operational flexibility based on that risk.
So prioritize the higher risk, obviously, would be the way that goes.
Yes,
so you're allowed to do that now? Were you allowed to do that when you were operating?
That was being implemented as I was operating. It's certainly an operational flexibility that the industry has been working on for a long time, and one that has driven higher capacity factors and meaning that reasonable assurance of safety.
Okay. Well, if you've been in meetings, and I'm sure you have, when I've talked with Chairman Hansen, one of my bugaboos with the NRC is the telework policy. Now it's 2 days a week. I think a day is 6 hours in the office. There was a push to change it to 1 day every 2 weeks, a day being 4 hours. And the commission came in and overturned what Chair Hansen had done. What's your opinion on the telework policy, and what changes would you make?
Yeah, I don't think I necessarily.
I mean, we're looking at new technologies here. In my view, if you can't be in a room with people to innovate, I don't know how you're going to get this done.
Yeah, certainly, Senator. I think in-person interaction is extremely important, especially for new people that are coming in the agencies. There's going to be a lot of new hiring that has to happen, and that mentorship is facilitated by being in person. I do believe that. It also is important for meeting those mission-critical activities. There's some instances where being in person can drive better outcomes, and so I understand that. And some roles have to be on the job. I was in one, during the pandemic happened right as I was, kind of getting out on the shift, and we didn't have a choice to telework. So there are definitely critical mission activities that must be completed, and a telework policy must support that. But I do also recognize that workplace flexibility is also a component of any telework policy. And when the agency is looking at having to retain folks, it's one of the things that I would understand and look to kind of make a priority is finding that balance of getting the mission done with providing the flexibility to keep talent in the agency.
Yeah, I mean, I'd like to see an overall overarching policy from the administration that would actually incentivize people to go into work every day like most people do, but this administration doesn't seem to want to do that. Last question. We're a lot of excitement about small nuclear. In my state of West Virginia, there's a specific provision in there that could be very helpful to us to develop these placements of these small nuclear reactors on abandoned coal mine sites that already have the generation in place. It would be great for the economics of the region and also for the workforce. So it's a win-win here, and it probably have environmental benefits as well. So if I'm sitting here in a community and I'm talking to my folks in West Virginia about the promise of the ADVANCE Act, when would the soonest reactor actually go online, in your opinion? Because people, when you pass these bills, people think it's going to be tomorrow. What would you say to that?
I think, some of the plans that are out there right now are to get these things online the next decade.
Well, so that's 10 years.
Well, within the next decade.
Well, but there's no provisions. The NRC doesn't have the licensing for these, so they can't move forward, right? I mean, I understand the one in Wyoming, they've got a construction permit, but they don't have a permit for the reactor. Is that correct?
Well, so that kind of gets into the details of the Part 50 process. It is a two-step process. The construction permit carries that plant all the way to when it's ready to start loading fuel. There's a review that happens in order to certify that the plant is built as designed and is ready to receive the operating license. And once it does, it can load fuel.
So are you telling me that the TerraPower can go all the way to construction of the reactor right now?
Well, so
they're permitted to that?
So
that's not my understanding.
I have to correct it a little bit. The construction permit is currently under review. So yes, right now the activities that they can do are
they're clearing the land and all that stuff now.
Exactly. But that activity is extremely important to getting into the construction of the nuclear aspects or the safety aspects of those plants. And so the timeline for the Advanced Reactor Demonstration Project reactors are to be built within this decade, before 2030, and it's important that the NRC supports those timelines as well.
Well, that's 5 years from now. That's licensing, construction, online. Do you think 5 years is a reasonable thing to tell people in Wyoming that's going to be when they're going to be online? I personally don't. You can probably tell the way I'm asking the question.
I think again, first-of-a-kind hurdles. There's always things that could pop up, and it's not necessarily related to the regulatory posture. There are things that happen in construction that require licensees to shift and adjust. I was intimately, familiar with this at the VC Summer Project. You have a plan on how the construction process is going to come together, but then some novel issue that was unexpected comes up. And it's about how those are managed. And yes, 5 years is certainly an ambitious timeline. But I think looking at the first of a kind, you're going to see longer periods in order to get those online. The goal being to get to nth of a kind. And the process that's being used there is to demonstrate and then build on that progress.
So I would say that as a commission nominee, where I want this efficient, I want it timely, without sacrificing any safety or environmental aspects of it, of course, and not to follow the history of the NRC, which has been a lot of foot dragging, a lot of redoing decisions that have already been made. And so I would implore you, if you go in this direction, that you heed those words. Thank you.